Why do we worry? Worry drains our energy, steals our peace, and clouds our vision of the future. It convinces us that we are alone in our struggles, but the truth is, God has already seen the end from the beginning. Every problem you face is one He has already equipped you to overcome. Worry is a distraction, a tool of the enemy to keep you from living in the fullness of what God has planned for you. This Christmas season, God is reminding you of something profound. He's in control. The story of Christ's birth is not just about a baby in a manger. It's about the Creator stepping into creation to turn chaos into order, despair into hope, and sin into redemption. If God could orchestrate such a divine plan in a little town called Bethlehem, what makes you think He cannot handle your situation? Faith is the key. Worry and faith cannot coexist because one cancels the other. Faith says, God, I trust you even when I don't understand, and trust me, God never fails. He works behind the scenes, aligning people, circumstances, and opportunities to bring His purpose to pass in your life. This season is a divine appointment. It's not just a time to celebrate, but to recalibrate. Christmas is a reminder that God steps into impossible situations and makes all things possible. Mary was a young, ordinary girl, and yet God chose her to bring forth the Savior of the world. What makes you think He can't use you to accomplish something extraordinary? God specializes in transformation. Just as He turned a stable into the birthplace of a king, He can take the humble, broken, or seemingly insignificant parts of your life and turn them into something glorious. But transformation requires something from you: surrender. You must be willing to let go of your worries, your doubts, and your fears. You must say, God, I trust you to take the mess of my life and make it a message for your glory. Remember, God's timing is perfect. You may feel like you've been waiting forever for a breakthrough, but don't give up. Just as the world waited for centuries for the Messiah, your moment of transformation is worth the wait. God's plans are always on time, and they are always worth it. This Christmas, let the miracle of Christ's birth remind you of the miracles God has planned for your life. Stop worrying and start trusting. God is faithful. He is good. And He will transform your life in ways you cannot even imagine. So lift up your head, stand in faith, and celebrate the God who brings beauty out of ashes and life out of lifeless situations. Worry is a subtle thief. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare, but it quietly infiltrates your thoughts, robbing you of the peace and joy God intends for you. Worry whispers lies into your heart, convincing you that your problems are too big, your resources are too small, and your future is uncertain. It magnifies your challenges and minimizes God's power, leaving you paralyzed and unable to move forward in the purpose He has designed for your life. When you worry, you focus on what you lack instead of the abundance God has already placed within you. Worry distracts you from the voice of God, filling your mind with noise and fear. Instead of seeking His guidance, you're consumed by the endless what-ifs of life. What if I fail? What if things don't get better? What if this problem doesn't go away? But worry is deceptive because the very things it causes you to fear are often the areas where God desires to demonstrate His power the most. Worry keeps you from embracing the joy that is your inheritance as a child of God. Jesus said, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Worry, however, reduces that fullness. It weighs down your spirit and clouds your perspective, preventing you from seeing the blessings that are already present in your life. It steals your ability to enjoy the moment because you're too busy projecting fear into the future. But here's the truth: God's plan for your life is unstoppable, and worry cannot change His purpose. Worry is rooted in a false sense of control. It makes you believe that if you think about your problems long enough, you can solve them. Yet the power to change your circumstances doesn't lie in your ability to worry, but in your ability to trust. Trusting God means acknowledging that He is in control, even when you don't understand how things will work out. When you let go of worry, you free yourself to fully embrace the life God has called you to live. You can step forward with confidence, knowing that His plans for you are good and that He has already equipped you with everything you need to fulfill them. Instead of being paralyzed by fear, you can move forward with faith, joy, and purpose, knowing that the God who created the universe is working on your behalf. Worry may be a thief, but trust in God is the key that unlocks the door to peace and fulfillment. God's wisdom is infinite and His plans are perfect. Before you were born, before you faced your first challenge, God had already mapped out the solutions. He exists outside of time, seeing the end from the beginning, and He orchestrates every detail of your life with precision and care. The challenges you face today did not take Him by surprise. He is not scrambling to figure out how to help you. He has already put the resources, people, and opportunities in place to guide you through every difficulty. Think about the story of creation. Before God created Adam and Eve, He prepared the earth to sustain them. He created the life, the land, the waters, the plants, and the animals all before humanity was formed. In the same way, before you encountered your current struggles, God prepared everything you would need to overcome them. He provided the grace, the strength, and the wisdom required to navigate each obstacle. What you see as a problem, God sees as an opportunity to reveal His provision and power. God's solutions are often hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. Sometimes He places the answer within you, a talent, a gift, or an idea that you haven't yet realized. Other times He works through others, sending the right person at the right time to speak into your life, offer support, or provide direction. And then there are moments when God works in ways you cannot see, aligning circumstances and events in your favor, even when you're unaware of His hand at work. Consider the story of Moses and the Israelites at the Red Sea. Faced with an impossible situation, surrounded by enemies and an impassable sea, it seemed like there was no way out. But God had already prepared the solution. He parted the waters, making a way where there was no way. The same God who delivered the Israelites is the same God working in your life today. He doesn't just provide solutions, He provides miraculous solutions that exceed anything you could imagine. It's easy to feel overwhelmed when challenges arise, but God calls you to trust Him. Trust that He has already gone ahead of you, making crooked paths straight and turning obstacles into stepping stones. When you rely on His wisdom and timing, you begin to see that every challenge is an opportunity for God to demonstrate His faithfulness. What seems like a setback is often a setup for a breakthrough. The key is to stop striving in your own strength and start leaning on His provision. Even when you don't see the solution immediately, rest assured that it is already in motion. God's timing is not always our timing, but His timing is always perfect. He is never late, never early, but always right on time. Your role is to remain faithful, to trust Him, and to be open to the ways He is working in your life. The challenges you face are temporary, but God's provision is eternal. He is the God who sees you, knows you, and has already provided everything you need to overcome. Faith is the invisible but powerful bridge that spans the gap between where you are and where God is calling you to be. It doesn't deny the reality of your struggles, but it refuses to let those struggles define your destiny. Faith acknowledges the challenges but focuses on the promises of God, believing that His plans for your life are greater than the obstacles you face. When you walk in faith, you're not relying on your own strength, wisdom, or understanding. Instead, you're leaning on the infinite power and love of God. Faith allows you to see beyond the present moment, beyond the difficulty, and into the divine transformation that God has prepared for you. It shifts your perspective from fear to hope, from doubt to confidence, and from despair to expectation. Faith is not passive, it's an act of trust in God. It requires stepping out, even when you can't see the full path ahead. Think of Abraham, who left his homeland, not knowing where God was leading him, but trusting that the one who called him was faithful. His faith became the bridge that connected his present uncertainty to the fulfillment of God's promise to make him the father of many nations. In your own life, faith works the same way. It's the vehicle through which God's power flows into your situation. Without faith, it's easy to remain stuck in a cycle of worry and defeat, seeing only the obstacles in front of you. But with faith, you begin to see possibilities where others see impossibilities. You recognize that no matter how difficult the journey may seem, God is with you, guiding and providing for you every step of the way. Faith doesn't mean you won't face struggles, in fact. Those struggles often become the very foundation upon which God builds your transformation. The trials you face refine and strengthen your faith, teaching you to trust God more deeply and preparing you for the blessings He has in store. Faith bridges the gap between your human limitations and God's unlimited power, ensuring that your struggles are not wasted, but are instead used for His glory and your growth. Christmas is far more than a time for celebration, gifts, and traditions. It is a divine invitation to pause and realign your heart with the will of God. It's a reminder that the birth of Christ was not merely a historical event, but a transformational moment where heaven intersected with earth, ushering in a new era of hope, redemption, and purpose. Through the gift of His Son, God extended an invitation to every one of us to step into His plan and align our lives with His greater purpose. When we look at the story of Christmas, we see a profound alignment of ordinary lives with an extraordinary will. Mary, a young girl with no remarkable status, surrendered her plans to embrace God's will, declaring, "Let it be to me according to your word." Joseph, a carpenter, set aside his fears and trusted God's purpose, even when it defied societal norms. The shepherds left their flocks to witness the Savior, and the wise men traveled far distances to worship Him. Each of these individuals responded to God's invitation, and their obedience brought them into alignment with His divine plan. Christmas calls us to the same kind of surrender and obedience. It invites us to reflect on the areas of our lives where we may have drifted from God's purpose. Are we holding onto our own plans, or are we open to His? Are we chasing the temporary things of this world, or are we seeking first His kingdom and righteousness? The birth of Christ reminds us that God's will is always good, perfect, and worth pursuing, even when it requires us to step out in faith. Aligning with God's will often means letting go of control and trusting Him in ways that stretch us. It's about recognizing that His ways are higher than ours and that He sees the bigger picture. This Christmas, as you reflect on the birth of Jesus, remember that God's plan for your life is not separate from the story of redemption. You are a part of His divine narrative, and He is inviting you to walk in step with Him, trusting His guidance and provision. This season is also a time to realign your priorities. Amidst the busyness and distractions, God is calling you to focus on what truly matters: His presence, His purpose, and His love. Just as the angels announced peace and goodwill to all, God's will for your life is rooted in His desire for your peace and fulfillment. But true peace comes only when you align yourself with Him, surrendering your worries, fears, and ambitions to His sovereign care. Christmas is a powerful reminder that God is not distant but deeply involved in our lives. Just as He stepped into the world through Jesus, He desires to step into your life in a new way this season. It's not about striving to be perfect or earning His favor. It's about accepting His invitation to align with His will and allow His Spirit to work through you. In doing so, you'll find that Christmas becomes not just a moment of celebration, but a turning point of transformation. where your life is realigned with the eternal purpose God has for you. The birth of Christ is a profound demonstration of God's power to bring light into the deepest darkness. At the time of Jesus' birth, the world was filled with uncertainty, oppression, and despair. The people of Israel were under Roman rule, longing for deliverance and a sense of hope. Into this bleak and chaotic world, God sent his Son, not as a conquering king with earthly power, but as a vulnerable baby born in a humble manger. This act was a declaration that no matter how dark the situation, God's light has the power to shine through and bring transformation. When Jesus entered the world, he fulfilled prophecies that had been spoken for centuries. Isaiah had written, "The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned." The birth of Christ was the fulfillment of that promise, a beacon of hope that pierced through the shadow of sin and despair. It was a reminder that God's timing is perfect and that he is faithful to fulfill his word, even when it seems like the darkness has lasted too long. In our own lives, we face moments that feel overwhelming, times when the weight of our struggles makes it hard to see a way forward. The birth of Christ reminds us that God specializes in stepping into those dark places and illuminating them with his presence. Just as he brought light to a world longing for redemption, he can bring light to your personal challenges, no matter how impossible they seem. His light isn't a fleeting spark, it is eternal, offering guidance, peace, and the assurance that you are never alone. The beauty of God's light is that it doesn't discriminate. It shines for the humble shepherds and the wise men alike. It reaches into every corner of our lives, illuminating not just the external circumstances, but also the hidden places in our hearts that need healing and transformation. The birth of Christ is an invitation to step into that light, to allow it to dispel fear, doubt, and hopelessness, and to replace them with faith, love, and joy. Even today, the light of Christ continues to shine, offering hope to a world that often feels dark and divided. His birth is a reminder that God's light is not diminished by the challenges of this world, it is magnified. Just as the star led the wise men to Jesus, his light leads us toward his purpose and promises. No matter how dark your situation may seem, the birth of Christ is proof that God's light is always greater, always stronger, and always victorious over the darkness. Transformation begins at the point where you let go of the burdens you were never meant to carry and place them into the hands of God. Worry often stems from the belief that we are responsible for controlling every aspect of our lives, that the outcome depends solely on our efforts, and that we alone must find solutions to our problems. But God never intended for us to live that way. His desire is for us to trust him completely, to surrender our worries, and to experience the freedom that comes from knowing he is in control. Surrender is not a sign of weakness, but an act of faith. It's an acknowledgement that while we are limited, God is limitless. It's saying, I can't, but you can. When you choose to surrender, you open the door for God to step in and do what only he can do. He begins to transform your life from the inside out, replacing fear with peace, doubt with confidence, and despair with hope. Surrender is the soil in which transformation takes root and grows. The process of surrender requires trust in God's character, his promises, and his timing. It's not always easy because it means releasing control and stepping into the unknown. But when you trust God, you are placing your life in the hands of the one who sees the end from the beginning, who knows your needs before you even ask, and who has plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Trusting him is not a gamble, it's a guarantee, because he is faithful. Transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it begins the moment you surrender. As you release your worries, you create space for God to work in your heart and your circumstances. He begins to shift your perspective, helping you see challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth. He uses the very things you once worried about to draw you closer to Him, to strengthen your faith, and to prepare you for the greater purpose He has for your life. The Bible is full of stories of transformation that began with surrender. When Peter stepped out of the boat to walk on water, he had to let go of his fear and trust Jesus completely. When Hannah prayed for a child, she surrendered her anguish and trusted God to fulfill her desire. In each case, transformation followed surrender, and their lives became testimonies of God's power and faithfulness. In your own life, surrender is the turning point. It's the moment you stop striving in your own strength and start relying on God's. It's the decision to say, I trust you, Lord, with my future, my family, my finances, and my fears. And when you do, you'll discover that God doesn't just take away your worries, He replaces them with His peace, His joy, and His purpose. Transformation isn't just about changing your circumstances, it's about changing your heart. And that begins when you surrender everything to the one who loves you more than you can imagine. God's timing operates on a level far beyond human understanding. While we often become impatient, wondering why certain prayers remain unanswered, or why breakthroughs seem delayed, God is never late. His timing is perfect because He sees the entire picture, past, present, and future, while we see only fragments. He knows what we need when we need it and how it will align with His greater plan for our lives. Sometimes waiting for God's timing feels like a test of faith. In those moments, it's easy to assume that delay means denial, but that's rarely the case. What feels like a delay to us is often God's preparation. He may be aligning circumstances, shaping opportunities, or working in our hearts to prepare us for what He's about to do. A breakthrough delivered prematurely can sometimes be overwhelming or unsustainable, but when it comes in God's timing, it's perfect, bringing peace and fulfillment rather than confusion. The Bible offers countless examples of God's perfect timing. Abraham and Sarah waited decades for the promised son, Isaac, but his arrival was precisely when it aligned with God's covenant plan. Joseph endured years of slavery and imprisonment before stepping into his purpose as a leader in Egypt. But every moment of waiting prepared him for the position God had reserved for him. Even the coming of Jesus was according to God's perfect timeline, as the Apostle Paul said, when the fullness of time had come, God sent His Son. In your own life, God's timing is no less intentional. The things you've been praying for, the dreams you've been nurturing, and the breakthroughs you've been waiting for are not forgotten. God is working behind the scenes in ways you cannot see. What may feel like a long delay to you might actually be God's protection or preparation. He is ensuring that when the breakthrough comes, you'll be ready to handle it and use it for His glory. Your breakthrough may be closer than you think. Often, just when things seem darkest or most challenging, God's hand moves in an unexpected and powerful way. He specializes in turning hopeless situations into testimonies of His faithfulness. The Red Sea didn't part until the Israelites were pressed between Pharaoh's army and the water. Lazarus wasn't raised until he had been in the tomb for 4 days. In those moments, God's timing wasn't late, it was perfect, leaving no doubt that the glory belonged to Him. Trusting in God's timing requires faith and patience. It means surrendering your timeline and believing that His plan is better than anything you could orchestrate. While you wait, God invites you to remain faithful, to continue praying, and to keep trusting. The waiting season is not wasted. It's a season of growth, refinement, and preparation. When the breakthrough comes, and it will be worth every moment of waiting. It will come with clarity, purpose, and blessings that exceed your expectations. So hold on to hope, keep trusting, and remember that God's timing is not only perfect, but also deeply personal. He knows exactly what you need and exactly when you need it, and your breakthrough may be closer than you could ever imagine. Christmas is the ultimate reminder that miracles are not a thing of the past. They happen when God steps into human circumstances. The birth of Jesus was no ordinary event. It was the moment when heaven touched earth, when the creator of the universe chose to take on human form and enter our world. This act of divine intervention changed the course of history, and it serves as a powerful example of how God's presence can transform the impossible into the miraculous. At the time of Christ's birth, the circumstances were far from ideal. Mary and Joseph were a young, unremarkable couple navigating the uncertainty of a miraculous pregnancy. They found themselves in Bethlehem, forced to take refuge in a stable because there was no room for them anywhere else. Yet in that humble setting, under seemingly ordinary and challenging conditions, the greatest miracle of all occurred. The Savior of the world was born, fulfilling ancient prophecies and bringing hope to humanity. This story reminds us that God's miracles often come in unexpected ways and through unlikely circumstances. He doesn't need perfect conditions to work. In fact, he often uses imperfect situations to display his glory. When God steps into human circumstances, the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and what seems impossible becomes possible. The birth of Christ is a testament to the fact that God is not distant or detached. He is deeply involved in the details of our lives, working in ways that are often beyond our comprehension. Christmas also reminds us that miracles are not limited to grand, earth-shaking events. Sometimes they come in quiet, personal moments that reveal God's love and faithfulness. Just as the angels appeared to shepherds, ordinary people going about their daily lives, God's miracles often come to those who least expect them. He meets us where we are, in the middle of our struggles, fears, and uncertainties, and brings his peace, provision, and hope. The miracle of Christmas is not just about what happened over 2,000 years ago. It is a reminder of what God can do in your life today. The same God who orchestrated the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem is still working in your circumstances. He sees your needs, hears your prayers, and knows your heart. He is not limited by time, space, or human limitations. When he steps into your life, he brings light to your darkness, hope to your despair, and purpose to your pain. Christmas challenges us to believe in the power of God to intervene in our lives. It's an invitation to open our hearts to the miraculous and to trust that God's plans are always for our good. Whether you are facing challenges, waiting for answers, or longing for a breakthrough, let the story of Christmas remind you that God is faithful. Miracles happen when he steps into the midst of our circumstances, and his presence changes everything. This season, as you reflect on the birth of Christ, remember that the same God who sent his Son to bring salvation to the world is the God who is still active in your life. He is the God of miracles. And Christmas is his promise that he is with us, working in and through every situation to bring about his perfect will. As we celebrate Christmas, let it be more than a moment of tradition or festivity. Let it be a powerful reminder of who God is and what he can do. The birth of Jesus was not just an event in history, it was the turning point for humanity, a declaration that God's love, power, and purpose are unstoppable. Whatever you may be facing today, know that God is ready to step into your circumstances and transform your life. The same God who orchestrated the miracle of Christmas is ready to work in your life today. Believe in him, trust him, and walk boldly into the future he has prepared for you. This Christmas, let God's presence bring transformation, peace, and the assurance that with him, all things are possible.